Welcome, everybody. Welcome. My name is Maggie Gruskin. It's my distinct pleasure to be with you today to talk about discovering self-care through Ayurveda. If you're new to this series, this is part of the San Antonio Public Library adult online program. And every month we meet on the second Wednesday at 12 noon for about an hour. So we welcome you to check out our previous recordings. You can check out the YouTube channel on the San Antonio Public Library system. We'll provide you the link in just a moment. And so these series are also endorsed by the Mayor's Fitness Council here in San Antonio as a way to just think about our own unique and fun ways that we can think about caring for ourselves in our body, in our mind, for our community and overall well-being. So in our ninth session of our Discover Self-Care Through Ayurveda series, it's my great pleasure to bring to you some of the ideas on how we can look at the change in season from summer to fall and focusing on September self-care practices. So with that, this is our link for the YouTube channel. If you would like to catch up on some of the previous 8 sessions, you can go to the youtube.com/user/my SAPL. Last month was emotional freedom. This month is September self-care, and join us again next month, October 13th. To join us live, please make sure that you register. You can follow me online and I'll give you some of that contact info at the end of the presentation. Join us in October for a mindset reset, positivity and health, how we're looking at Ayurveda and modern lifestyle-based practices. November, the focus is gratitude and mindfulness, and we'll wrap up the year to focus on how we can align ourselves for an upward spiral living. Again, join us on the second Wednesday of every month at 12 noon Central. So let's dive right in with the idea of Ayurveda. If you're brand new, let's just review some basics. Ayurveda comes from the language Sanskrit, which is one of the oldest, if not the oldest language in the world. And it basically means the science of life. It comes from the 2 root words, Ayu, which means life, and Veda, which means the science or the knowledge of life. And more in particular, the knowledge of the entire lifespan. So we don't look at just today, but our whole life. And so Ayurveda is about 5,000 years old, and it began as an oral tradition passed on from master to student all the way down to our modern day. And it's focusing on a consciousness system. So basically, it requires that we pay attention. We're aware of ourself and how we choose each action in our life. It focuses on returning to our natural state of health and balance and wholeness. So using our ability to be aware, to be balanced in our self-awareness, Ayurveda utilizes the 5 senses to look for how we are perhaps imbalanced or how we can return to a natural state of health and balance. So what we see, what we smell, what we hear, what we can taste, and what we can touch, these all become simple and powerful tools for self-care. Now, Ayurveda and yoga work beautifully together. So if you practice yoga, I invite you to take your practice off the yoga mat and bring your practice into your daily habits. So how can we bring that unity of mind, body, consciousness off the yoga mat so we can practice self-care and well-being all day long? These are my passions, and I'm so excited to come every month and share some new ideas with you. So what you should know about Ayurveda is that Ayurveda and yoga are the sister sciences. They work together beautifully, synergistically. So whereas Ayurveda focuses on the natural healing of the mind and body, it utilizes yoga as one of the disciplines to cleanse and purify the body so that the body comes to a practice of self-care and daily habits with more clarity of mind and less toxins. So, you don't have to be vegetarian, and you don't have to love Indian food, and you don't even have to practice yoga or meditation. And you don't have to learn Sanskrit, although I don't know why you wouldn't, because it's such a beautiful, beautiful, pure language. But if you want to learn about Ayurveda, you do need to do three things. You need to care about your health. You need to want to be in harmony with nature, and also have this desire to want to bring greater balance and restore that natural sense of balance in your daily living. So that's it. That's an exploration of yoga and Ayurveda coming together to help us in September as we focus on self-care. So bring in our awareness, our ability to meet the demands of the life as conscious choice makers. All right, my friends. So if you're joining us, you can also just write down in your wellness journal, what is your dosha? We're always asking that first soul question. Who am I? Not by the roles or the jobs or the temporary aspect of how we're showing up in life, but Ayurveda welcomes us to view ourselves as our energetic, vibrant beings, as this multi-dimensional energy. We have a body, we have a mind, we have emotions, and we have the spiritual aspect to ourselves. So knowing who we are is sort of a central component of each of our discussions each month. So if you don't know what your doshas are or what they are, I encourage you to view the previous recordings, and you can also go online for online quizzes on dosha. And you can go to chopra.com/dosha quiz and other sources for easy, free dosha quizzes online. So I'd love for you to join us next month and share with us what your dosha is. Now, as we come into understanding the background, the foundation upon which this science of life is based, Ayurveda uses the 5 elements known as the building blocks of nature, as well as the building blocks of how we come into being in our body and in our mind. So these 5 elements make up everything we perceive through our senses. They're kind of what we use to understand what we're inputting from outside of our body into our body and mind. So these are the space, or akasha, air, or vayu, fire, which is tejas, water, jala, and earth, prithvi. So all of these 5 elements are in everything from the stellar star dust to the inner micro aspects of our cell. So we all have these 5 elements, just like fingerprints. We're imprinted with a few of these, with all of these in a certain combination at conception is how it is viewed through the Ayurvedic literature. So when we are conceived, we are given sort of an energetic blueprint. And so with that, when these elements combine together in pairs, they form very unique constitutions or tendencies. And so when space and air come together, they create vata, primarily this aspect of movement. And when fire and water come together, they create this pitta, focusing on metabolism and transformation. And when water and earth come together, they form this kapha, sort of what holds together our body and the mountains and lakes in our outer body. So just think of these elements swirling around in our body, in our mind, and in our outer body. And these 3 doshas are how we can sort of connect with our daily choices in self-care. So how do you feel about your self-care routine? We always start with awareness, right? We pause and check in. How is my self-care routine? So just take a moment right now to jot down some ideas of how you feel, or your inspirations or intentions for starting your own self-care routine. And again, writing this down in your self-care journal or wherever you like to keep these notes. Now, I love to work from our Perfect Health Ayurvedic Lifestyle Handbook, which is where I train with the Chopra Center. So my workshops are 6 weeks long, or they're online, or a weekend retreat at a local spa. We'll tell you more about that in coming months. So today's topic, we're going to look at just the Ayurvedic daily routines as we look at the ending of the summer months and as we're beginning to welcome the coming fall months, right? I love these changing times. It's such a powerful time to pause, see what we've done, what we've experienced, and then to think about what we wish to co-create for our next season in life. And today is a full moon, so it's also a very auspicious time. All right, so let's begin looking at restoring balance. How does that happen? One thought, one action at a time, as how we fill this pot of our overall state of health or disease. So how are we going about creating our own healthy daily routine? Let's look at two basic ideas that Ayurveda looks to, which is nature's rhythms. Are we aware of and in tune with nature's rhythms? So how can we create healthy daily routines that also puts us in touch with living in tune with the rhythms of nature's? And then periodization. Do we know how to work and then how to rest? Or are we going 24 hours a day? So maximizing our health and longevity with periods of activity, focus, concentration, where we have to. And then including those mindful moments of pausing, reflecting, dipping into those periods of rest, including a very healthy sleep routine. So how are we doing on the rhythms and the periods of work and rest? So let's dive in. The rhythms of nature from Ayurveda look at everything as this constant flow of energy. So how can we tune into all of these different types of rhythms in nature, like the circadian rhythms, which follow the 24-hour clock that we're very, very familiar with? Are we in tune with it? Do we honor it? Do we organize our work and rest according to the natural rhythms within the circadian rhythms? And what about looking at the seasonal rhythms? Are we aware? Do we live in certain climates where we are reminded by the change in seasons that there are rhythms throughout the whole year? If you live in a very moderate climate where it's kind of the same all year round, you may not get this senses so much. So it's good to understand that there are always these seasonal rhythms that provide a cue, an external cue on when to change up all of our different self-care habits, from what we eat to how we rest, when we wake up, and how we move our bodies. Oh, the book, The Power of Full Engagement, is really, really good to look at that for this idea, especially for tapping into peak performance at work. And then what about lunar rhythms? Are we connected to the lunar tides, the moon, how its pull is affecting the waves and the ocean and the water that's in our bodies? Just being aware and in tune of how these rhythms are always happening and working, and how it's impacting us, our awareness and choices of work and rest. And again, the tidal rhythms, oh my goodness, all you have to do is go sit by the ocean and feel that pull, reminding us of these primordial energies that are all around nature. Get outside, allow nature to remind us of all these rhythms that present themselves as an opportunity for us to sync our daily habits for greater balance. So let's look real closely at this idea that we humans are unique in the animal world, and that we have this sort of ability to be conscious of self and reflect, and to have this impulse to evolve, to change. But are we aware of it? Do we know how we're changing? We're always changing, but are we aware of it? And is it a conscious pathway in our life? Are we dipping into our willpower, our ability to exercise our will in the direction and pathway of which we wish our life to go? This is unique in the animal kingdom. So honoring that, just like nature, the acorn once planted will grow into an oak tree, and a rose once planted will grow into a rose, and a rabbit will grow into a rabbit. But a human is uniquely endowed with this choice, this ability to tap into the space between what daily life is bringing us and how we choose to respond to life. So, with an Ayurvedic lens, we tap into the concept of our tendencies through the doshas. The doshas, again, help us to answer that first question of who am I? As an energetic being, we are imprinted with a sprinkling from the 5 elements. And those 5 elements give us the characteristics that attune to the 5 elements, like cold and heavy. Are we sharp? Are we floating around? Are we oily or are we dry? All these different characteristics combine to form who we are. And once we know who we are, then we tap into the next magical question of the universe, which is to say, what do we want? So writing down really quick, what do you envision for your self-care in September for the coming fall months? What are your desires? What do you really, really want? Our desires are sort of hints from our subconscious. If we tune in to the early waking moments, or if we journal, or if we meditate, we might tap into sort of what our soul is speaking to us. If we're really in balance, if we're listening to the whispers of our soul, we'll pay attention to the power of intention and how it serves as the very basis of how we create our life. There's an ancient saying from Buddhism, I believe, a man becomes evil drop by drop, just as a water pot is filled drop by drop. A man becomes good just as a water pot is filled drop by drop. So in that way, I know I messed up that, but in that idea is that each of our thoughts lead to an emotion, and then we act on that emotion. So if we can be aware of who we are, our characteristics, our tendencies, and then align our desires to that which most nourishes our unique nature, we will be able to float along the river of life that most supports and nurtures who we are. So the doshas become this sort of matrix, this decision matrix that guides us to make choices in life by honoring our unique nature and tendencies. So would you like to learn how to know what is yum or yuck for your dosha or your unique constitution? All right. So the 3 natural impulses from Ayurveda and the 6 yoga philosophies, this Shadarshan as they're called, is this concept of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So these are the different impulses of growth. So in which direction are we heading? So in sattva, this is the impulse to evolve and transform, to go forward and progress. And then we have the rajas. Rajas is sort of this neutral impulse. It poses the question, how should I act? And it requires this consciousness and awareness, right? It acts like the spur that urges us to choose. Should we go the sattvic way or shall we go the tamasic way? So tamas is the impulse to sort of stay the same or regress. So which way? Where are we naturally inclined to be as we look at what life is bringing to us? There are mental characteristics, or known as gunas, as well as our physical tendencies. So you might be aware that some people are rajasic, they like to act. Sattvic people like to evolve, progress, not perfection. Tamasic actions in people, again, like to just sit or be still or not be tapping into awareness. So when we look at Ayurveda, we're looking at a system, a guide, a matrix that can help guide people to become more sattvic, to be conscious to be acting at the rajasic way, to choose and to choose the quality that will bring us into nurturing our nature, into that next level of our own self-healing and self-evolved self. So this is naturally going to lead to having our natural desires that support and sustain who we are. So if you've ever been curious about whether you have unhealthy desires, whether it's eating junk food or, not being active or not doing this or not doing that, this comes from any of us. And the more impurities we have, the more toxins we have in our body or in our mind, the more it serves to block our ability to activate rajas, to discern our best way forward. So dealing with negative emotions, psychological stress, mental lethargy, or unwholesome surroundings. Remember, everything in Ayurveda is energy or information. So how are we choosing to activate that rajas, that discernment, that self-awareness to better choose and avoid any more of that ama, the buildup of the toxins in whatever form, right? This is prevention 101, how we begin with that awareness and then choosing most wisely to prevent those imbalances from happening in the first place. So sattva is where we are aiming. It exists in us. It's our innate instinct to elevate in body and mind. So to stay in that floating dynamic aspect of balance. And it opens us to live in tune with nature and to move in the direction of our higher consciousness and evolution. All right, my friends. So that's it on the 3 natural impulses. So how are they showing up for you in the change of seasons? It's a wonderful time to reconnect with that idea. On the qualities of our consciousness, and then how we correlate that with how we choose how to self-care. All right, so now grab your pencil and now draw out a clock. And in your clock, I would love for you to write in your daily routine. When do you wake up? Just put a mark right there. What time do you normally wake up? What are the first 3 things you do in the morning? Just write them down right there, right after you wake up. Just the first 3 to 5 things you do. And then go ahead and think about morning. Are you exercising? Or what time are you eating in the morning? Maybe what time do you eat lunch normally? Now be honest, when do you eat lunch? And then when do you start work or your day at home? And then in the afternoon, what is your energy like after like 2 or 3? And then when do you stop work? When is your shutdown complete? If you work 24/7, kind of just jot down where you normally are supposed to stop work. And then write down when you eat dinner. And then what fills your nighttime? What do you do after dinner and before sleep? Just write down 2 or 3 things that you do right now. And be honest, nobody's going to see these notes. These are for your eyes only. And now the magic question, my friends. When is your bedtime? Be honest, write down when you normally go to bed. If you don't know, go ahead and jot down the next 3 to 5 nights when you normally go to bed and see what your tendency is. Now, this is really important for us to do. We always try to check in with what we're currently doing, a gentle, non-judgmental assessment of what we're doing, because you can't improve on what you do not measure. So we always look gently at what we're doing so we are full mind, body aware of what we're actually doing. All right, now let's look at what Ayurveda has to share with us. Okay, so we're going to go here from your blank clock and let's look at, in Ayurveda, what's known as dinacharya. So dinacharya is this concept of sort of this daily routine of how we work with the time concept in one day and how we combine it with our activities. So don't worry about taking notes. We're going to go through 2 other clocks in detail. This is just an idea of the 24-hour clock in one simple image. So sunrise, if you start at the 9 o'clock, is usually around 6 a.m. wherever you're at. And then you go up to the kapha period, and then noon is pitta, and then you go down to 2 p.m. the vata, and then sunset around 6 p.m. or so. It's going to vary around the world, and there are many more different segments of time in different countries, right? So India is going to have many more of these segments of time, but just for now, to give you an idea, after sunset, we move again back into kapha, and then bedtime, and then the changing aspect of what we call the pitta transformation at night, and then the vata period in the day. So if you're brand new to the dosha clock, don't worry. You can review some of the previous videos, the early dosha sessions we had, and then go ahead and dive into our next few session slides here. So this is the 24-hour view. Now let's look at the two 12-hour master cycles. And I'm simply going to call them an AM bookend and a PM bookend. Now you'll notice we have the three same 4-hour segments in both bookends, right? The same times, 10, 2, and 6. So if you were taught to drive here in the United States, you were probably taught to put your hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, right? So that's a real easy way for us to remind ourselves that we have the capacity to drive our self-care habits, and just remind ourselves on the changing nature and characteristics of the natural energies and characteristics of the daytime hours and the nighttime hours, and how we have the power to select the best activities, the best thoughts for each of the respective periods throughout the day. So they look the same, but qualitatively and metabolically, they're very different. As you probably are aware that our bodies change throughout the whole day. So let's dive in and look at each one. So the morning dinacharya, the morning routine, again, 10 and 2, 2 to 6, and 6 to 10. So let's take a look at each of these different parts. So if you start at the 2 a.m. to 6 a.m., this is the vata period. So this is where you're going to feel those two elements from vata, the space and air. So you're going to naturally connect and feel fresh, awake, a rising activity, right? And then you go from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is known as the kapha period in the morning. So you're feeling this slowly waking up from early activity. It's almost a gentle rising, right? So this is a great time to get moving, to move and exercise the body. And you want to wake up as close to 6 a.m., sort of tapping into that vata energy, and avoiding waking up later towards 10, because the later you wake up and the kapha period, you're going to wake up plugged in to sort of that heavier feeling of kapha, which, remember, comes from those two elements of water and earth. And it could leave you feeling really heavy and slow all day long. So we don't want that. All right, and the last part is this 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Super powerful time. This is where the Agni, remember that metabolic fire, is at its highest peak. So this is where we want to eat the biggest meal right around noon. So Agni, metabolism, is bright and burning throughout the day here. You want your hottest, your largest meal, and you want to slow down the activity here. So it's all about pulling those nutrients from the most nutritionally dense meal of the day. Now let's look at what the PM bookend might look like. Ready? All right. So the PM bookend, it's going to have the same Pitta, Vata, Kapha 4-hour segments. But now let's look at the qualities. So if we look at the 2 p.m. to 6 p.m., this now changes. So now the energy is a focused, productive energy, and it's still sort of that air. So it's a great time to brainstorm. It's a great time to look at what you need to focus for the next few hours. So thinking of using that energy from the Pitta in a productive, focused way. So a mindful transition towards the end here as we go into the Kapha period. Now the Kapha period at night is now a slowing down. And in this way, we're going to want to honor the connection, the social connection, and a slowing down from the busyness or the mental productivity. So it's really important. And think about what we normally do after dinner. If you're used to turning on the news and turning on these really, engaging movies and stuff, that's very, very stimulating. So enjoy while you can, but remember at the end of the kapha period, you want to slow that down, reduce all stimulation, and then we'll talk about digital sunset. So the last part is the pitta. What does the pitta focus on at night? So 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. Now the pitta, we don't want to focus our metabolism here in digesting food. No, my friends, this is the magic moment where our body and mind work to detox. So instead of going to bed with a full belly, we don't want that. We want just a tiny amount of food in there so you don't wake up hungry. We want to focus on deep sleep. The fire of Agni here, we want to focus on detoxification and to process the day and let that go so we wake up squeaky clean and well rested the next day. So this is the changing nature of the evening dinacharya. Just writing down some notes on how this applies to your current self-care practices, and then matching it with how you intend. How are you motivated to perhaps reshape how you spend either your morning hours or your evening hours? Knowing that that's where we have perhaps the most control. We want to focus where we have control so we can exercise our choices, right? Okay, so now that is the evening dinacharya. Let's go ahead and now take out some notes and just see what calls out to you. What are you ready to start? Maybe just pick out one or two from the next few slides. Don't do them all, just what is calling to you the most right now. So in your optimal morning routine, awaken, ideally without an alarm clock, around sunrise or slightly before that for your morning practices. You want to drink a glass of warm or lukewarm water. You want to make sure that you empty your bowels or your bladder within the first hour. If you have problems with this, we can give you lots of tips, but you can super hydrate. Just drink like a big glass, 20, 30, or 40 ounces. Just drink, not to hydrate, but just to get that bowel movement going. First thing in the morning is really wonderful. You want to brush your teeth, clean your tongue, maybe do some oil pulling. You also want to do a nasal passage cleansing with a neti pot or a nausea oil if you have really, really dry sinuses. Maybe perform some gentle flexibility exercises just to wake up the spine in 6 different directions, right? Side to side, forward and backwards, and twisting side to side. Mindful movements. You don't have to go crazy just yet. Just opening up the body, opening it up from that nighttime slumber. Perhaps you want to engage in a meditation practice or practicing some pranayama, some breath work to awaken that prana and charge in the mind-body connection. And if you shower, perhaps you also want to do a beautiful self-massage, an abhyanga, which we've touched on before, and maybe even using some essential oils, right, to spark your attention. And what time do you eat breakfast? Gentle awareness, and then your morning work activity. So optimal afternoon routine. What would you like to start? So eating lunch, again, can we plan it right around noon? So between 11:30 and 12:30, when our Agni is burning brightest as our largest, most nutritionally dense meal. And then can we sit in stillness, in silence, perhaps just on a bench looking at the trees or away from your desk, not at your desk, and just allowing space to let that food nourish the body, give gratitude for the nourishment, and taking that pause, collecting your thoughts. Or perhaps you want to go to walk to help aid in that digestion of the food, a gentle stroll of 5 minutes to 10 minutes if you have time. And then return back for your afternoon, your work or your afternoon activities, again with that focused intention, right? And then perhaps if you want to transition at the end of your workday, at the end of your duties at home, to create this bookend, to stop your workday, and before you continue with connecting with your family or loved ones, create that space of transition. where you can move from the day's activity as you create that intention of how you want to show up at home, after work. So perhaps a 1 minute meditation, or 10 minute, or 20 minute, and just maybe some gentle breathing exercises, and connect with your intention of how you wish to perform one self-care act and one way to connect with those you love. Now, how about an optimal evening routine? What does that look like for you? What can we envision? What can we intend for our evening? So again, dinner, as we talked about previously, should be a supper, a supplement, not our biggest meal, but just something enough in our bellies so that we don't wake up in the middle of the night hungry. And you should eat your meal at least 2 hours, 2 to 3 hours or more before you sleep. We want to minimize the food in our belly at bedtime. And again, we might pause and just give thanks, sit gently and quietly reflecting on our meal. And again, if you love to walk for 5 minutes to 10 minutes for a gentle after dinner stroll. Very easy digestion, and maybe habit stack and use this as a social time to bond with a neighbor or a loved one. And maybe enjoy a light activity after dinner. Instead of turning on the TV and, sitting on the couch and getting stimulated with violent or, stimulating ideas in your head, this is a wonderful time to let the mind and the body really chillax, relax, and minimize any intense mental work. So close your laptop, close your iPod or your iPad. If you choose to read a book, read a real book. Turn down the lights. Allow our melatonin to naturally guide us towards that sleepy bedtime. I sometimes just like to light candles around the house and allow ourselves to tap into whether we're really tired. Amazing what can happen when we turn the lights off and pay attention to the signals of that circadian rhythm outside. As the sun goes down, it's sending us messages. So shut down complete, minimize intense mental work and any electronic stimulation, at least 30 minutes to an hour before bedtime. Ideally, you want to get to bed 9 or 10 o'clock at the latest, absolute 10:30. So how does this relate to your current practices of your self-care? Pick one or two and just start to practice with them. Explore, have fun, collect data, and see what works. All right, so self-massage, one of my favorite self-care routines, right? So you can select a different base oil. There's so many different base oils that you can use. And let me just review a few of them really quickly. I love to use the Everyday Ayurveda Guide from Kate O'Donnell. And so she says sesame oil is warming and great for those who run cold and experience dry skin. So as a base oil, you might want to choose that one. Sunflower and almond oil, they're lighter, right? And they're neither heating nor cooling. So they're good to use year round. Mustard is very heating, right? And it could be stimulating for the cool and heavy body types. I like to put mustard oil right in my bath. It's very invigorating. Or coconut oil is cooling and good for those who run hot, all right? So we're talking pitta or summertime, right? Or for those who have sensitive skin. Oh my goodness. And now, which essential oils to use? Now, essential oils are part of the Ayurvedic lifestyle. Now, of course, modern essential oils can be such high quality because of the ability to distill them with very precise ways. But I always encourage you to please purchase the essential oils that your budget can afford, the best quality oils, rather than you get one oil and have it be the best quality rather than you get 10 at a super, super cheap price, because oils are not regulated, and so they can put anything in there. And so please be an aware and conscious consumer when you are purchasing your oils. Now, essential oils can be classified according to the 5 elements and the 3 doshas and their corresponding gunas, right? The opposite pairs of how we look to balance. If we're hot, we want to balance with something cool. If we're dry, we're going to balance with something nourishing and moisturizing, right? So most oils, essential oils, are going to be drying. So that's why we want to pair them with a base oil. Most of them are going to just evaporate, and we want to use a base oil so that we can spread them over larger parts of our body, like when we're doing a full body massage. And so they don't evaporate, because the really good quality ones are volatile aromatic compounds and they will dissipate very, very quickly. So we want also to penetrate deeply into the skin so they get into our circulatory and blood systems most efficiently and effectively. So as we talked about the 3 impulses to evolve, my friends, we can choose the right essential oils to tune us towards the more sattvic element in our body, in our physiology, as well as in our mental or spiritual qualities that we wish to evolve into, and as well as working with the tamasic or the dull aspects in our physiology, as well as our mental sheath, our mental qualities. So we're going to look to balance the qualities of our mind and body with the corresponding opposite qualities in the essential oils. And it's too big of a topic to get into, but we work with the doshas and the subdoshas, because each of the oils offer so many unique ways to balance our unique path in our wellness. So we're all different, and our stresses are different. The ways we balance our mind and body are going to be different. So one of the ways to use it is to know how to balance with essential oils. All right, so I hope you have fun exploring that. One of my favorite self-care routines every single day. Now, our last topic is this idea of restful sleep for self-care. As the number one foundation, I call it the king of self-care habits, upon which all other self-care habits are based. So remembering, revisiting when your bedtime is, we want to work backwards until we have that ideal bedtime. Allow yourself 3 to 6 months to adjust your alarm clock. Have an alarm clock for a bedtime and let your body adjust until you want to, and you're in tune to go to bed at that 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock at the latest. Maybe practice calming breath work or gentle stretching after your dinner, a couple hours after your dinner. Maybe a gentle soothing self massage or a warm bath with lavender oil, something very soothing. Remembering to avoid stimulating alcohol or caffeine late in the day. Instead, choose other drinks like herbal teas. You might want to do golden milk. And then maybe what can we feed our mind? Instead of invigorating movies or violent images, maybe treat your mind to reading an inspirational or spiritual book. Remember, this is what your mind is going to be chewing on for the whole night long. What would you like your cells to be digesting as you recoup throughout the night? Perhaps grab a journal and begin a gratitude practice. In just 6 weeks, if you write down 3 to 5 things you're grateful for the day, you can increase your happiness set point by 25% or so, according to recent studies from positive psychology. So begin to jot down your thoughts. And then once you're in bed, close your eyes, tune into your body, and allow your breath to rest, relax, slow down. Maybe recapitulate the day. How did the day go? Rewire it so that you rehearse how things can go better the next day. And then just allow yourself to fall to sleep. Oh, and if you want to, you can do legs up the wall, which is really, really calming to minimize any of that stress response throughout the day. Okay, and again, touching on the seasonal cycles, our self-care routines will change throughout the year. As we are ending the Pitta season, the mid-summer through early autumn, how is this changing outside in our environment? And how are we getting ready for the beginning of the Vata season through late autumn? So we go into fall, lots of changes, lots of air, lots of leaves. That's all about fall. And so winter becomes that heavy area, right? The wet and the heavy part of the kapha. So just paying attention to our seasons as wonderful reminders of how we can look at our self-care routines and how we can change them up for a new fun way to adjust our self-care routine. Okay, my friends, that's it. And as always, we review some basic tips to enhance our vital life force, our energies based on the five elements. So gaze into the night sky, see where you can look at the stars, walk in abundant vegetation, go for a forest walk, a nature hike, especially at dusk or dawn, or maybe allow the light and warmth of the sun to grace and touch your skin to give you that vitamin D, right? Or walk along natural bodies of water to connect with the cooling aspect of the blue water to calm that pitta in the summertime, right? Walk barefoot on natural earth, connect with kapha to reground ourselves into that balanced self-awareness. And then connecting and revitalizing our prana through breath practices is a simple and powerful tool to recharge our cells and our mind. So, my friends, that's it for our session today as we're looking at September self-care. I hope you got one or two takeaways on how you can change up your routine at the end as we're nearing the end of summer, the beginning of fall. And again, I want to welcome you and to join us next month as we look at mindset reset, positivity and health through the Ayurvedic perspective, as always on the second Wednesday of the month. October 13th, join us at 12 noon Central Daylight Time to get your registration and also to get your 2-page monthly handout with our notes of the month. You can visit our San Antonio Library events calendar at mysapl.org/events. And then we can share with you the previous recordings of all our other sessions. So thank you, my friends. Here's a listing of some of the books that I reference for our discussion today and through all of our sessions. And this is me, Maggie Gruskin. It's been my pleasure again to speak with you for this month's September self-care focus. I can be reached at my website, ekamlife.com, EKAM life.com. And I'd love to connect with you if you're on social media, Facebook and LinkedIn. Find me at Maggie Gruskin. And if you're on Instagram, join me. I'm new there, so find me there at Lifestyles to Thrive, the number 2, Lifestyles to Thrive. And it's been my grand pleasure. Please send me a message if you would like handouts from today when we're going to be looking at your habits. If you want this beautiful mandala to keep track of your self-care habits for the whole month, and you color in your daily practices as well as a basic quick guide of your doshas. And for the fall, there's also a handout on tips for a perfect fall routine. So go ahead and reach out to me. I'd love to connect with you online. And again, I would love to have you join us next month as we look at the mindful reset. Thank you again. It's my grand pleasure to be with you today. And I hope you got one or two ideas. What ideas sparked an interest for you so you can practice some of these self-care routines for the coming months. Thank you so much for joining in, and I look forward to having you join us online next month. Thanks, guys. Be well. Namaste.